Farmers from different European countries kept on protesting on Thursday aboard their tractors to press EU leaders to do more to help them with taxes, rising costs and cheap imports.
There's a lot at play here. So sustainability is an aspect, but the war in Ukraine is also a major factor influencing these protests. So with regard to the war in Ukraine, a lot of protests are responding to EU's both internal and external response to the war in Ukraine. The EU externally has really tried to mobilize exports from Ukraine in a way to provide aid to Ukraine, but this has caused a lot of uproar and stir and discontent with farmers within Europe.
In France, the European Union's biggest agricultural producer, after farmers have been protesting for weeks, complaining that they face unfair competition from rivals due to varying environmental standards among EU states, and setting up roadblocks on major roads over the last weeks, the government has dropped plans to gradually reduce subsidies on agricultural diesel and has promised more aid. There is an important point. It is the European level rule of 4% of fields kept fallow. I find that scandalous in a region like mine, where we are there to produce, to feed the French. We must be able to produce at 100% of our capacity. So let us work, let us produce, and we will do the rest to feed our fellow Frenchmen. Italian farmers joined the protest movement to press governments to ease environmental rules and shield them from rising costs and cheap imports. In recent days, they have blocked traffic with dozens of tractors near motorway access points near Milan, in Tuscany and elsewhere. We took to the streets to protest against Europe and the new laws it is making. Agriculture has already been on its knees for a long time, and we took to the streets because we have reached the end of our rope. We have a very low income. In Greece, farmers have parked tractors on the side of highways in central and northern Greece, symbolically blocking the arteries for only a short period as they stage protests. They are threatening to block highways for longer hours, risking transport chaos on the highway, which links the north of the country with the south, and cutting off the transport of goods. We are demanding a better tomorrow with low production costs, lower fuel prices, lower electricity prices, and a fair distribution of subsidies. Facing high production costs and losses from floods and droughts, they are demanding an increase in state subsidies, cheaper fuel and electricity, and swifter compensation for crops and livestock destroyed by weather-related events. In Portugal, tractors roared down a highway as farmers made their way towards Spain in an attempt to block the border. Despite an agreement reached between the country's biggest agricultural confederation, the CAP, and Portugal's caretaker government, several smaller associations, feeling misrepresented, announced plans for protests. Portugal's government announced on Wednesday an emergency aid package worth €500 million for farmers as it tries to avoid the kind of mass protests disrupting France and elsewhere across Europe. Farmers have been very badly treated in the recent years in Portugal. We don't have much information and the government response hasn't been perfect, mainly with the last cuts that were previously agreed with the farmers. Without any previous notice, they just cut. And I don't think this is the way to deal with people. Farmers are a very strong force in this country. The European Commission proposed on Wednesday measures to limit agricultural imports from Ukraine and greater flexibility towards rules on fallow land in a bid to quell the anger. The Commission said it would extend the suspension of import duties on Ukrainian exports for another year to June 2025. They were originally suspended in 2022 to help support Ukraine's economy following Russia's invasion. On Thursday, farmers threw eggs and stones in front of the European Parliament in Brussels, started fires near the building, and set off fireworks as they demanded EU leaders meeting nearby to help them with taxes and rising costs. The farmers' blockades on highways and protests that spread elsewhere in Europe are exposing a clash between the EU's drive to carbon dioxide emissions and its aim of becoming more self-sufficient in the production of food and other essentials following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Imports from Ukraine, on which the European Union has waived quotas and duties since Russia's February 2022 invasion, and renewed talks on concluding a trade deal with South American nations in the Mercosur bloc, have fanned farmers' discontent.